Hi, I'm Erin Underwood, and I'm here to show you the Creative Grids 15-degree triangle ruler. It is a Creative Grids ruler, so the non-skid stuff on the back is really handy to have in place when you're cutting long lengths. It also has icons on the front to give you suggestions on what you want to make with it, as well as the MS tag. In case you lose your instructions, you can scan it and come see this video. Now, what we're going to do with this one is actually cut strips. It's very versatile, so this is the first one. We're going to cut strips. This strip is 14 3/4 inches to cut our first triangle. We're going to lay the ruler down on the edge of the fabric up here, and making sure that the 14 3/4 inch line is on the strip of fabric, so it's nice and straight and perpendicular. And then we would take our rotary cutter and slice up to make the first cut. And we'd switch our ruler over to the other side, now lining the 14 3/4 inch line on the bottom of the strip, make the second cut to create your first triangle. You would continue flipping and cutting until you got as many triangles as you want. Now, this particular technique can make a beautiful block like this. I've cut several triangles, sewed them together on the length, trimmed down to 12.5 inches, and the block is the perfect size. Plus, I have a pretty little point here that the triangle makes. Now, let me show you another technique that it can do. Here's a smaller block that we're going to be making. I've cut the fabric at 7 inches, and I'm going to line the triangle ruler up between 10 inches and 3 inches. So we are cutting off the bottom of the triangle and sort of creating a trapezoid. I'm going to cut in the same manner, flipping the ruler back and forth, always lining the 10 inch up on one side of the fabric and the 3 inch up on the other. And when I'm finished, I'm now going to cut the background. The trick to this is when you cut the triangle with the line on 10 inches, you want the background fabric to line up at 9.5 inches to account for your seam allowance. If you lay 2 layers on top, you need to have that overlap for the 1/4 inch seam allowance. The next step in creating this block would be to sew the background to the triangle, and you would sew 6 of them together in long ways. Press the seams up and down. Trim down to the size that you want. This block is 16.5 inches, but the triangle ruler can make an 18.5 inch unfinished block. And there is no curve piecing and there's no applique, but you have the illusion of a curve here with this block. Now, to take that one step further, you can strip piece your strip of fabric. Here I used 2.5 inch strips, and I pressed all to the red, so that when I flipped and cut, I could sew them together with their backgrounds, create a block that looks like this, curved piecing. All the seams nestle because they're going up and down, and then I press the seams open in order to get a pretty little point at the bottom. So now here's another technique that you can use with the triangle ruler. We're going to actually cut triangles out of 18 inch strips, or fat quarters if you'd like to. They could be very scrappy. I'm going to lay the ruler up between the 3 inch line and the 21 inch line to create my triangle, and I'm going to flip and cut and then sew the triangles together. Now, the next thing I want to do is create a 90-degree angle on the top, so I'm going to take advantage of the center line here. There's a line drawn down the middle that makes a 7.5 degree triangle. There is a 1/4 inch on either side, so if I had a wedge of fabric, I would simply line the 1/4 inch line of the ruler on the edge of the fabric, slice up here to create this triangle right here, sew it to the top, and now I have a nice rectangle. This is also used on the quilt behind me, long strips. These strips are 70 inches long. Okay, and here's another technique that the ruler can do. This is a wonderful one using the 7.5 degree line up the center. I've pieced a strip unit with 2.5 inch strips, and I've pressed to the blue. And then I've taken the center line, as we did once before, and lined it up on the rectangle. And I cut my first triangle using the 7.5 degree line. I'm going to flip it over again on the same rectangle, cut the second triangle with the 7.5 degree line. You have a little bit of waste here. When you finish, you sew these two together to create one big triangle that is the size of the ruler. You do not need to recut it. When you sew them all together, you create a quilt that looks like this. Okay, so one more thing that the ruler can do is create the Dresden plate. You would simply cut your triangle the length or the width that you'd like by lining the ruler up as we've done before. This time I'm lining it up between the 12 and the 3, and of course I'm folding it, making the seam to create the Dresden plate fan. You can sew 6 together and put them on a background if you want to top stitch the edge or use a decorative finish on it to finish it off. But here's another thought. How about if you make really big Dresdens? You can see this top Dresden here. I cut from 24.5 inches down to 16. Then I cut another one a little shorter. I believe it started from 18 to 12 and then from 12 to 9. Created my Dresdens, layered them up and sewed them together. You can see they're very long. It's going to make a beautiful tree skirt. One unique feature that the ruler has are these wonderful lines, these angled lines. We have 30, 45, 60, and 70 degrees on the line. What I did to create this block was take advantage of those lines. I made a strip set with red, green, red, and tan, and I laid the 30-degree line up on the seam line. You can see right there, and I sliced. And then I would flip the ruler and slice my whole strip. Now when you do this, you actually get two different blocks. We have one that's going to have the red down at the bottom, and then when you flip, you'll end up with one with the tan down at the bottom. But for this purposes, we're just using the one. I sewed all the triangles together, trimmed it down to 12.5 inches, and there's your beautiful spinning block. Now here's a twist on that. I took the same strip set, laid the 30-degree line up on a seam line, sliced it, but then I flipped to the other direction, still using the 30-degree line, and sliced it. And when I sewed the two triangles together, I had a beautiful chevron with it. Now, one more fun thing that the ruler can do is to actually create a curved circle block with no applique and no curved piecing. What we've done here is actually take a section of the ruler, and a paper piecing template was created. I believe it starts at 5. A paper piecing template was created of the flying geese. Then I cut the background for the triangles to fit, to match up, and I cut the top also above it using the top half of the ruler. You take this paper pieced unit and you sew it to your backgrounds like this, just like you did the other fan blocks, then sew them together in a long seam. And when you get finished, you've created a beautiful curved geese block with no applique and no curved piecing. So as you can see, there are a myriad of talents that this ruler has, lots of blocks, some expected, some unexpected, that you can make with the ruler. I hope you get a chance to use it. I'm Erin Underwood, and thank you very much.